A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
We are in election season and it's the turn of Western Australian voters to join the lines for polling booths around the state. The election will determine members for both the Legislative Assembly and the WA Upper House, known as the Legislative Council. Well, pre-poll voting opened almost 2 weeks ago, and predictions are that Labor will win convincingly, but with a narrower majority. The issues include cost of living issues, the economic recovery of Western Australia, and reducing hospital wait times. But Christian political commentators say the woke agenda-biased curriculum, banning puberty blockers for children and moves towards conversion therapy are crucial issues. Well, a panel of specialist commentators joining us first up this morning, and Jacob Hill is the Australian Christian Lobby Western Australian State Director. Bill Muehlenberg is a regular commentator on national cultural issues at this time and contributor to the latest Western Australian Christian Values Checklist. Jacob Hill, first of all, a special welcome along to you.
Thanks for having me.
And Bill Muehlenberg, welcome back.
Thanks again, Neil.
Let me start with something perhaps a little odd here. The Western Australian Premier, Roger Cook, this week, vying for a third term as the Labor leader and being the Premier, successor, of course, to Mark McGowan. But this week, Roger Cook was saying some things about the US Vice President, J.D. Vance, called him a knob at a pre-election event in Perth. Now, I might start with you, Bill Muehlenberg, here, because you're across American politics as well, and not everybody has been excited about the controversies between the US and Ukraine. But what do you make of calling J.D. Vance a knob?
Well, sadly, often parties on the left are known for doing things just like that, right? Instead of really standing up for the issues, explaining clearly to the electorate why they're going to be better than the opposition and why things will hopefully get better under their latest term, they resort to name calling. And, well, in this case, I'm not sure what Vance has to do with anything specifically and directly in WA politics. So it's kind of the typical left, I hate to say it, attacking conservatives, calling them out names. Anybody can call names. Kids in second form can do that. The question is, are, say, some of the policies of Vance and Trump actually harmful or helpful? And of course, many people, including myself, would say, on the whole, they're helpful. So I would say, if anything was not helpful, that was this comment by somebody who needs to concentrate on his own home state.
Jacob Hill, was this just a little bit of electioneering? Was this, let's get a comment here? I don't know whether it's resonated all the way to the Oval Office in the White House, but he certainly got a headline here in Australia. Do you think it worked?
I think probably like what Bill's saying, I think it would have worked with the people that are already that way inclined. I think the people that I think name calling and pulling other people down is a reasonable strategy when you look, trying to deal with ideas. Anything to distract from what's actually going on. I think those guys would have probably, but I expect he's more preaching to the choir as far as the people that agreed. Expect most intelligent people probably were a bit embarrassed that our state leader would be speaking that way to a world leader. I'm embarrassed.
Some might agree with you, of course. It could even be national embarrassment to have one of our leaders be so openly critical there. He has apologised and he made the comment, you've got to have one unprofessional moment, don't you? And that was it for him. I mean, unprofessional moments. Bill Muehlenberg, can we afford our state leaders to be calling world leaders names like this?
Well, we expect all of our leaders to be better behaved, better thought through on things, whether this was just an off-the-cuff remark or, well, presumably it reflects his long-standing view on things. But still, we expect better from leaders. A, concentrate on the issues that matter, certainly what's happening in WA, and B, as we heard, preaching to the choir, sure, but a lot of people actually, even in Australia, think the Trump team has been doing a lot of good stuff, and more power to them. So, yeah, we hope he's better than this, and he'll refrain in future from, going down this kind of unhelpful path.
Okay, Western Australian voters off to the polls tomorrow, and Roger Cook, the Premier, the opposition leader is Libby Mettam, and she's the fifth Liberal leader since the former Premier Colin Barnett quit after the party lost government way back in 2017. Jacob Hill, what is the electorates throughout WA seeing in Libby Mettam? Is she a leader who can mix it with the best? Is she a match for Roger Cook?
I think, she's definitely go toe to toe with someone like Roger Cook. I've had a little bit to do with her up close and been quite impressed with what I've seen. She's she commands a room easily enough, but she's able to sort of put her ideas together quite well. She's not getting pushed around by it. She's got some very strong personalities that are around her, like Basil Zemplis, for example, and she's able to, doesn't seem to be intimidated by that, not pushed around by that, being able to sort of even help pull him alongside to the point where she's using these strong personalities as an asset, and where I'm pretty impressed with what I've seen, really. I'm very confident that given the job, she would be able to. She'd be more than capable of taking the reins.
Okay, last election was an absolute drubbing for the Liberals, and since then, maybe there's some water under the bridge. There's no expectation, perhaps, that the Liberals are going to win government tomorrow. Although, as I did hear an interview with Libby a little earlier, she's saying, of course we can win. It doesn't look likely. But what are your thoughts here? Back to you, Jacob Hill, on Libby and the way that the numbers of the Liberals are so small, it's almost insignificant, almost as though she can't even have the title of opposition leader, but there's an expectation of a big bounce back. What are your views?
Well, she doesn't actually have the title of opposition leader. Well, she hasn't in the lower house, but because the Nationals actually had they had more members, but. What will happen is the very, very worst. I expect your traditional Liberal safe seats will be restored, and you'll get back to a reasonably balanced parliament. I don't know. Obviously, we all live in our own little echo chamber to some degree. So, factoring that in, I think the Liberal Party are going to do a lot better than a lot of people are thinking. I think they'll definitely bring it back to the middle. And look, who knows? Could even say something a bit special, really, where you get a comeback from nothing. They had 4 seats in the lower house, so that's so anything that comes back from there is an improvement. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see it actually to be quite a close race.
Let's get on to some of the issues. And Bill Muehlenberg, you've been working with the Christian Values Checklist, and there's a team around the nation who has a spotlight and determines that there are particular issues, and the ascertaining of how each of the parties will vote on those. If there's anything outstanding on that checklist, perhaps along the lines of the banning of puberty blockers. Why don't we start with that? Because there's all sorts of gender issues that are going on, surgery for minors being proposed in WA. How have you assessed what might be happening so far as that particular issue?
Yeah, well, that's one crucial issue for many. Maybe I should just bracket this by saying, for those not in the know about the Australian Christian Values Checklist. Simply type in that phrase on your computer, Google it, and you'll quickly get to the site. You'll see our WA election checklist. It does have 20 questions. You've mentioned one or two. And 7 main parties, just to keep you in the loop if you don't know what this is all about, arranged by those who answer the best on this range of 20 questions to the worst. So in that sense, you can, it's very colorful as well. So even if you can't read the fine print, you simply look at the color and the checks and crosses. Australian Christians who are running do the best. In fact, perfect score if you look at the 20 questions, followed by One Nation, then the Shooters and Fishers Party, and then Liberal, National, Labour, and Greens. So they get progressively worse. So by the time you get to the Greens, they're just about off on every single question we've asked. So for Christians who are concerned, not just about puberty blockers, but a whole range of issues, the life matters issues, abortion, euthanasia, things like pornography, things like religious vilification laws, quite a few issues. Education, including private or Christian education and so on. Even opening Parliament with prayer. These are the kind of things that probably the mainstream parties are not dealing with very much, but certainly we cover them all in our checklist, and we see, again, some parties do much better than others. So, on that issue of puberty blockers, sadly, not unexpectedly, Labour and the Greens are right up there, have no problems with it. Sadly, kind of a question mark both for Liberal and National on that one, whereas much more clear answers for the other 3 small parties. So we can hope that the Libs, A, if they get in, B, they are strong on some of these issues. We've mentioned Trump already, so I like to think there is a Trump effect that we're seeing around the world, right? Whether Nigel Farage leading the pack in the UK and other places, who knows? There might be a bit of a awakening, a political awakening, at least in WA. People tired of the usual woke agenda items, tired of Labour. So, if the Libs get in, we hope they stand strong on these sorts of issues, because that's certainly not just what many Christians are concerned about, but I think a lot of ordinary people in WA care about them as well.
Well, it is a one-page, easy at a glance, green ticks and red crosses, and there's a few question marks in there too, but the Australian Christian Values Checklist, simply Google christianvalues.org.au and you'll find that checklist for a one-page glance. To go a little deeper and to see what the parties have responded and how the candidates have responded, you might want to check out the resource from the Australian Christian Lobby, wavotes.org.au. Jacob Hill, what will listeners see if they go to wavotes.org.au? What's an assessment of what sort of resource they'll be able to evaluate?
So it's a simple, there's a few of the key topics, like the main headlines with the Christian values, like life issues, health, cost of living, and there's a few more. But as you click into each one, each party will have their positions quite clearly outlined. Again, you'll see probably a lot like what Bill was saying. You've got the Christian Party, the Australian Christians are quite forthright in what they'll be doing as far as some of the more the things that where Christians probably have a lot clearer distinction between conservative and the Christian values, and then where you'll see again just exactly like what Bill's got really, saying much the same thing, where these conservative parties are typically moving to a conscience vote or no official position with some of those more contentious issues that are important to the Christian community, but the non-Christian conservative part of the voting of voters where possibly not as important to them, and you find the Conservative parties are staying away from those issues or staying away from making commitments to most of them. But you'll see Liberal have actually they've gone quite clearly about their position on puberty blockers. Libby Medham's given us a commitment that she will be, if she's to be elected, or the Liberals were to win majority or a shared majority, they will repeal birth certificate laws. They will put an immediate stop on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for minors, not minors, under 16. What she's committed to. So there are some of those hard and fast commitments, but most of those contentious issues there's no flat out commitments from the Conservative parties apart from the Christians. One Nation is quite upfront about their position on the gender, particularly when it comes to children, the gender confusion stuff. Gender nonsense, I think they called it. They've corrected me when I've asked them about the question.
All right, so that's good to know, isn't it? Libby Medham leads the Liberals, and she's committed to banning puberty blockers and surgery for minors in Western Australia, and also repealing those laws around birth certificates, which really cause our government departments to declare something that absolutely is biologically false. Hey, I'm just looking down the list of the sorts of things where you compare the parties, Jacob. Religious freedom of faith-based schools and child sex change practices, healthcare, euthanasia laws, women-only sports and spaces, and housing and cost of living. Out of that list, which ones have been most contentious, or which ones have been debated or reported on most widely in WA? Which ones do you think?
When it comes to an act like where the discussions get where you've got two-sided opinions, probably the gender issues where women are being, we're basically having their rights infringed on by men who are having their identity changed on a birth certificate, and then that impinges on their rights. I was previously to working for the Australian Christian Lobby, I was working in homelessness, and we would often have the ladies coming out of the shelters having not slept the previous night because there was a man that identified as a woman that was accessing the facility. And, these women have all been traumatised by, not all, but majority of them have been traumatised by men mistreating them. And it's just where these poor girls are not slept in the one place that they should be safe, where they should be able to be away from men they don't know. So that was up close and quite personal for me seeing that. But that has been probably one of the bigger issues. Another one, which I think it's probably a national conversation a lot as well, the cost of living. Whereas what we've seen here is the current Labor government they've got a railway project that they budgeted $3 billion for. It's currently at $13 billion and climbing the spend on it. It's just mind-boggling the mismanagement. But my real concern is they've sucked a lot of the workers as well off building sites and into their infrastructure projects, when the front and foremost is the homelessness crisis in Western Australia is massive, and that's what we see. And the cost of living as far as rents and things here, it's at the point where it's breaking people. We need to be getting about 20,000 houses built a year to keep up with the population growth. We're only been getting 15,000, so we're actually still falling 5,000 houses a year behind. So it's actually getting worse. And where these guys are blowing money, and pulling boys off building sites to build pet projects while houses need to be built. Our hospitals are falling apart, and it's just how out of touch they are is just absurd. So that's been quite a always on the front newspaper. Really, is the cost of living, the housing crisis, the ambulances ramping. But what I've not seen addressed is the fact that Labor have pulled all the boys off building sites to do their own projects, and instead Labor will be saying, "Oh, we'll pledge this many billions of dollars and build this many houses," but they've got no strategy to actually put a brick on another brick. So where we're seeing the issues that are there, we're actually not seeing them properly discussed. So we're very, very one-sided, our media.
It's going to be a huge challenge, whoever wins government tomorrow. We're talking about the Western Australian state election. It's on tomorrow. Our two guests, Bill Muehlenberg, a regular commentator on national cultural issues and contributor to the latest WA Christian Values Checklist. Also, Jacob Hill is with us. He's the Australian Christian Lobby Western Australian State Director. Now, there's some websites you can go to because what we're talking to today is the fact that there are some checklists out there, and it might be a last-minute thing for Western Australian voters just to be able to ascertain where the parties, and there's 7 different parties that you can get their detail all about, but you can check out, of course, the Christian Values Checklist. Simply Google that, or the WA Votes website, wavotes.org.au. Bill Muehlenberg and Jacob Hill, we're back with more in just a short while. Well, a special focus this morning on the Western Australian state election. It is, for people around Australia, maybe taking you by surprise. But polls have been open for the past 2 weeks in WA. So a focus on WA today. Roger Cook is the current Premier. He's vying for a third Labor term in office. The opposition leader, or at least the leader of the Liberals, Libby Mettam, is expecting a big bounce back. She's the 5th Liberal leader since the former Premier Colin Barnett quit after the party lost government back in 2017. Two guests with us, and Bill Muehlenberg from Culture Watch, and he's representing, of course, today his contribution to the Western Australian Christian Values Checklist, which is a 1-page checklist with green ticks and red crosses that give you a quick overview of who's standing for what for the election. And, of course, Jacob Hill, the Australian Christian Lobby State Director for Western Australia. The WA Votes website has lots of great resources. Let me come to the effect that you talked about just a little earlier, Bill Muehlenberg, the Trump effect and the movement towards a conservatism. It's enabled people who have been perhaps hiding under a rock to be able to rear their head and get up above the parapet because fears of getting shot down and cancelled, those seem to have alleviated a little. Do you think there is a Trump effect on what's about to happen in Western Australia?
Well, could well be. I hate to keep bringing up my state of origin, or at least country of origin, but I think, what Trump has done there, we are seeing around the world moves in that direction. As you say, people becoming more bold about standing up for kind of basic conservative values, resisting the woke agenda and not feeling bad about it. Even big corporations who've openly come out and said, hey, that's the end of the woke and DEI nonsense from us. We're not going to go down that path anymore. It's not all that helpful. And I think we could even give kind of examples, perhaps right here in Australia, the not too long ago, election, Northern Territory. You can almost say a kind of a tough love conservative approach. Won the election there. Well, big problem with crime, obviously. And just the other day, she didn't, want to go down the path of a, welcome to country ceremony or acknowledge the original landowners. So that was a pretty brave thing for any politician in Australia to do. So is that part of the Trump effect? And well, speaking as a Victorian, we have a huge problem in youth crime, migrant crime every day, horrible stories. I suspect Perth may not be all that different. But we have, our new Victorian Liberal leader here, Brad Batten, former policeman like Peter Dutton. So there you got two ex-cops who at least, hopefully on that issue, right, know something about crime, know something about the need to keep communities safe, protect people from these gangs of thugs, often teenagers, and repeat offenders, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times. They're arrested, they're out on bail the next day, they do the same thing. So if, again, the Libs and the Nats, just on an issue like that in WA, can say, hey, we're kind of done with the woke and easy on crime policies. We've had enough of the DEI nonsense. We want to protect people in WA. I think, well, the electorate is probably in the mood for that kind of shift. Labor has tended to be weak on these things. The Libs and Nats are certainly getting stronger by the day in some places, so that could be a part of the election results.
Jacob Hill, as the Australian Christian Lobby Western Australian State Director, the sorts of things that Bill's talking about now, clearly you're monitoring those things along every day. When we talk about issues that, address some sort of contrast to the woke agenda, I mean, issues around religious freedom, where that's been suppressed in so many ways. Are there some things on the horizon that might give some hope for religious freedom, faith-based schools and the such?
I think the only thing that will help that will be a change in government. Realistically, there's pretty strong commitment from the Labor government to implement. There was some of the reviews done by recently about discrimination with schools, and I've seen the recommendations, and I've seen even the drafts for the submissions that have been put forward to see, about that have been shelved till after this election, and a part of the reason is because they're so extreme. That would have been a real tripping point for voters with, re-electing this Labor Party. So realistically, if Labor get in, depends on the strength of the crossbench, and it really, really is going to depend on massively on what sort of leverage the opposition has, whether they'll implement some of the stuff that they've got lined up. Big things being just taking away the right for schools to be able to hire according to values, where essentially, with the law as it says that a faith community can hire according to faith, and there's an exemption there from the Discrimination Act, and they're trying to carve schools out of being a faith community, which, firstly, a school, I think, to say a school's not a community is absurd, and say a faith-based school's not a faith community, again, is just it's being dishonest. But it's very clear. It's that long march through the institutions, and it's not even subtle. They're just going after the schools like the communist agenda is to just go after the children, and it's very, very clear what it is. But it's going to be very, very the strength of the opposition is going to be what saves it or lets it go through. And the area that we've got the real concern with is the conversion laws. I've seen some of the drafts from that as well, and they're hoping to model you guys, Bill, using Victoria as the gold standard for stopping people being able to talk about issues with their children and with their congregation. So much hangs on this election. It's the very, very worst case scenario is we need to have a strong opposition at least to slow some of this down.
Okay, when we talk strong opposition, I mean, typically, just thinking back through these past few years, right back to the last WA state election where so many seats were lost, it was because the Liberals were such a weak opposition that there was nothing likely to happen, and it seems to be that WA voters just all went for Labor. When we talk about a strong opposition, we might get some attention to the upper house and the crossbench. And let me ask you, Jacob, about the possibilities, the chances, that long, hard-working set called the Australian Christians in WA. They have fought through thick and thin. They're hopeful, of course, of getting a seat or two in the upper house. Is that a possibility?
I'd say they are a very, very strong chance to get more than one upper house seat. I will be shocked if they don't get at least one. But I would be almost as surprised if they don't get two. Where the laws in Western Australia have changed, where prior to this election, the state's been divided into 6 regions, whereas now it's moved to one region, much like in the federal election. And what that's done is it's moved it from about 14% required to get a person into a seat to 2.6%, which is 36,000 votes-ish. So if we don't see Christians coming into our upper house parliament, I would be, the Australian Christian Party, I would be extremely shocked. Also, I know that the Greens have high expectations as well of being able to get good representation in the upper house, and as well as some of the other minor parties. And I'm hoping that some of the more conservative minor parties would be up there as well. And I've met a lot of the Liberal upper house candidates, and there's a lot of really solid Christians, like proper practicing, church-going, serving in their church Christians who are on the Liberal upper house ticket as well. So the potential for a very, very strong Christian presence in the upper house it's very, very promising.
Okay, when we talk about, and you mentioned it towards the beginning of our conversation, a Basil Zimbalist effect, of course, renowned as the Lord Mayor of Perth, quite a media personality, well known. I think he was an AFL commentator at one stage too, so there's a certain thing that people love about Basil. Is there going to be a Basil Zimbalist effect on the election? What do you think here, Jacob?
Look, I don't think it's going to hurt. I think having a person that has that profile is probably going to do a lot for a lot of your sort of non-Christian but conservative blokes, your football-loving, cricket-loving, your regular guys who tend to lean towards more traditional values in the sense of some of the family, like what is a man, what is a woman, some of the common sense stuff. And so I think that will have it will definitely have a positive effect as far as attracting some more of the conservative voters to his party. And I think it's also quite a big validation for the Liberal Party. Having him come on board, especially when, like you were saying, they were so weakly represented. If it goes badly, it could be very much like someone throwing away a very significant career, which obviously he's putting all of his chips in with the Liberal Party to get in to Parliament. So it's quite a strong endorsement for them from that sporting sort of section of Perth, if you follow the drift.
He's got a profile, hasn't he? Hey, Bill Muehlenberg, come back to this thought that there are, as Jacob says, a lot of good, solid, sound Christians who are standing as candidates on the Conservative side for this election. What we've seen in previous times and what might be apparent across a whole bunch of states and federally is that when Christians are elected, it's all very nice to try and attract a Christian vote. They don't always then stand up and be counted as Christians once they have a chance to be part of the legislative process. What are your thoughts for that style of, getting elected on a Christian vote but then not standing as a person of faith and with a conviction there? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, good point. And a few things can be said. Obviously, we've seen that too often. federally, state-wise, overseas. A lot of great promises, a lot of great rhetoric and talk before an election. Vote for me and I'll present Christian values in politics. But when they get there, often they don't. Can be for various reasons. Party solidarity. You got to do what cabinet says. Certainly that's the case in Labor. Or there's not much conscience vote allowed. Libs allow it federally on abortion, things like that. But too often, well, I've heard it personally from Christian politicians, important vote comes up. They either vote the wrong way or they don't vote at all. They abstain. Yeah. And then I'll give them a ring. I'll call them and say, hey, what happened there? And, the usual line is, well, obviously, to do any good, I have to stay in the party. If I rock the boat too much, I won't be staying in, and therefore I can't do any good. To which my obvious rejoinder is this. Well, look, if at every crucial vote and issue, you just go with everybody else for self-preservation's sake, well, guess what? We actually don't need you there in the first place. You're not doing any good. You're just caving in every time something of value happens, and you just go either with your own leadership or, what you think is going to be keep most people happy. Well, you were not elected to, keep the masses happy. You were elected especially because Christians thought you could make a difference. You could be salt and light. So that's always an issue. That's always a worry. So we need to pray for two things. One, pray carefully about who we vote for in this election tomorrow, but pray that if your Christian politician gets in, pray that they stay a Christian. They have a backbone and they don't cave in so readily.
Well, Jacob Hill, hearing what Bill Muehlenberg is saying there really just reminds us of the important role that you have and that other state directors for the Australian Christian Lobby have around the nation, because while you're seeking these commitments before an election, you're the guy we're all counting on to hold them to account in some sense as the lobbyist after the election, and you help them to think through the issues from a Christian worldview. It's a big responsibility that sits on your shoulders.
I actually relish that responsibility. Especially if, not that we endorse people, as we're non-partisan, but we definitely do put, weight behind people's decisions and different things. And we, and if people are telling us that they're going to be coming in with a certain, with a certain position, and they don't hold to that, that will be something that will be not taken lightly. I'll be very, very, very serious about making sure that people. Firstly, I'll make sure that all of the commitments that I've made, I'll be very, very, very take that very seriously to follow through, and also expect that the commitments made to us will also be treated with that same with that same level of importance. So as far as that goes, one of the things that we're really working on as well is to have the larger Conservative Party seeing clearly where votes have been preferenced, and we've been quite vocal about the value of a vote that falls down to, say, the Liberal Party or whichever party. If they can see it's come from a Christian party or a Christian candidate, like a Christian candidate, they will see that the number one vote sat with a Christian. And I want that to be hyper visible, and we will be pointing back to that and bringing attention back to that at every opportunity, should we need to help these guys stay on course. And what I really believe what will happen there is that will help the solid Christians that are in these parties they will be able to point to that as a political advantage where, as well as standing up for their own faith, they'll be able to say to their leaders or say to the party, hey, look, guys, this is actually, the wider view is actually, this is quite a lot more people think this and believe this than what's being presented because of, the silent majority factor. but we're really, really expecting to have quite a big outcome as far as a preference going to the Conservative parties coming from Christian parties and from Christian candidates, and having that really, really visible where they can see, even though, say, the Liberal Party or Labor, whoever gets in, they will see where the preference came from, and that will be from a lower house Christian candidate. And that's something we've been very strategic about.
We've been seeing a development now over many years, and Bill Muehlenberg, all the years I can remember reporting on these things, you've been there as well, and we're seeing that Christians take their vote a whole lot more seriously. And I don't know whether you can point to there being a Christian bloc, but there certainly is a growing number of Christian believers who put their conviction where their mark on that ballot paper goes. And certainly it's going to mean putting a mark on the ballot paper of those parties that claim to have a Christian foundation. I'm thinking of the Australian Christians, as I say that, and Marika Gronwald, who's been a regular guest at different times in lead up to various elections and talking about issues in Western Australia. But we're going to need to just draw a close to our conversation here. Bill Muehlenberg, you're not in WA, so I'm going to leave you out of this part. But Jacob Hill, I do need to hear from you. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow night when the votes are being counted and the winners being announced? How do you think things are going to look tomorrow night?
I think come Sunday morning, we're going to wake up to a different looking WA. I think the political landscape of Western Australia will be a lot more settled. I will be very surprised if the Conservative voice, if it hasn't got an actual a majority, it will be very close to it, and every step of the way will be for the next term will be contested. If there are people pushing against things like religious freedom, there will be enough of an opposition to slow it down and to actually prevent it. And look, I'm a eternal optimist, and I wouldn't actually mind seeing and wouldn't be overly surprised if we see a Conservative majority come through. If some sort of a coalition is formed, I would not be surprised at all.
Well, yes, significant things. Expect big change when you wake up on Sunday morning after the vote on Saturday night for the Western Australian state election that's happening tomorrow. I want to thank the two of our guests that we've had with us this hour. Some more conversation coming next hour. But Jacob Hill is the Australian Christian Lobby Western Australian State Director. Now, there is a website. It's a comprehensive website where you can find out what the parties and even what the candidates think of the issues in the election. You can find it at wavotes.org.au, And Bill Muehlenberg with us today, and contributor to the WA Christian Values Checklist. You'll be able to find that checklist at christianvalues.org.au. It's a one-page document. At a glance, see some green ticks and some red crosses and some question marks as to where the 7 main contender parties are at with the way that they stand for the election. First of all, Bill Muehlenberg, thank you so much for joining us today on this little update for WA.
Thanks for having me.
And Jacob Hill, thank you so much for giving us your insights today on 2020.
Real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We'll have some more coming in the next hour.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.